Humongous spoiler warning. I will be talking about major plot points in the show and the series finale.
If you haven't done it already, do yourself the favor and watch this cinematic masterpiece of a show. Okay, with that out of the way. I love Avatar: The Last Airbender. I grew up watching the reruns on Nickelodeon and eventually picked up all 3 seasons on DVD. From the thoughtful writing, the creative world building, the simple magic system, the beautiful animation, or the gorgeous score, there is so much to love about this show, and judging by the hours of content that there is on YouTube of people talking about these things, I think it's safe to say that I'm not the only one who feels this way. With the show being released on Netflix, I did what any Avatar fan with a Netflix account would do. I rewatched the entire thing from start to finish again. But as I was watching it, now that I have a bigger brain and an ungodly obsession with music, I started to notice, hey, the music in this show is pretty freaking good. The music in the show had always been something that stuck out to me as a child, but I never stopped to wonder why. But now that I'm older and, as I said, have a bigger brain and an unhealthy obsession with music, I decided to figure it out by seeing if anybody else had figured it out and posted a video about it on YouTube. I had already watched so many videos of people talking about the lore of the world of Avatar and explaining the history and theorizing about anything and everything that I thought, oh, for sure, there's bound to be videos of people talking about the music of the show since it's such a big part of what people remember about Avatar. When I tell you I was shocked. There was one video about 2 minutes long talking about the Eastern instrumentation implemented into the music of the show. That was it. In that moment, I took it upon myself to finally add something of value to the internet and decided to make a video trying to explain, why is the music in Avatar: The Last Airbender good? Before we begin dissecting what makes the music of Avatar good, I think it's a good idea to get a base understanding of what makes good music in any piece of narrative media. Just like with characters or themes, you want the music to grow and evolve as the story is progressing. Now, this is a bit of an oversimplification, but the easiest way to do that is to play a piece of music whenever the person or idea you want it to represent is on screen. Now, boom, you've established what's called a leitmotif. Now that you've established what this piece of music represents, you can play it in scenes and you'll have an added layer of context to what's happening, because you won't only be seeing what's happening, but you'll be hearing what's happening musically. Let's use an example. Take for instance this leitmotif. This piece of music is used to represent the Fire Nation throughout the entire show. In the beginning of the show, this song only plays when Zuko shows up, because he's the only idea that we have of what the Fire Nation is. But as the show goes on, Zuko becomes more and more detached from this piece, and this piece begins to not represent specific people from the Fire Nation, but the Fire Nation as a whole. In fact, this leitmotif is so deeply rooted as being representative of the Fire Nation that we get one of the coolest moments of the show when this happens. Did you catch that? That's characters in the show playing the Fire Nation theme song. So, whenever this piece of music shows up, our ears register that the Fire Nation is present, even if our eyes don't. Another small example of this is Ba Sing Se and the Dai Li. This is the leitmotif for Ba Sing Se. That melody also appears in the theme song for the Dai Li, kind of showing the connection that the Dai Li has with everything that happens in Ba Sing Se. So those are easy examples of music in a story, but why does any of that matter? Well, as I said before, it adds an enormous amount of context to what's happening on screen, and it lets the viewer know how they're supposed to feel. Let me show you. This song is called Peace, and it plays at the very end of the show. This song, like the name suggests, invokes a satisfying sense of peace. But why? As technical and objective as I want to stay, I can't help but notice that these string swells feel like deep, relaxing breaths. But getting back to the world of technical, this is the first melody that you hear in the entire song. Now, if you didn't catch that, that is the same melody as this. This piece is called Avatar's Love, and you hear it throughout the entire show, since the beginning. The song usually plays after Team Avatar has escaped danger and is now safely riding away on the back of Appa. This sets up the idea that this song represents safety for our protagonists, a place out of harm's reach. So it makes sense that this is the first thing we hear in this song, since this song plays after all the conflict of the show has been resolved. It's letting us, the viewer, know that we're safe and we don't need to worry about anything. Now this leitmotif is dotted throughout the beginning of this song, but we actually hear the song Avatar's Love play when we actually see our protagonists, Team Avatar, relaxing in Iroh's tea shop. Then, as Aang and Katara walk outside, we hear another piece of music that represents the romantic relationship between Aang and Katara. This leitmotif is played here and there throughout the show, most notably in the Cave of Two Lovers scene. Okay, that's great, but you might be thinking, is that it? Is that all that makes the music of Avatar good? Oh no, there's an important middle section of this song that I intentionally left out because it starts getting connected and more specific to the character of It's here where we start taking a deep dive and putting on our tinfoil hats to look at how the music is connected to the story of Avatar. Avatar The Last Airbender was scored by Jeremy Zuckerman and Benjamin Wynn, together known as the Track Team. In an old interview that they did, they confirmed my suspicions that I had rewatching the show, and that is that Aang actually has 2 theme songs. He has this theme song, and he has this theme song. That's pretty weird, right? It begs the question, why does Aang have 2 theme songs instead of just 1? While thinking about this, I remembered an old video that I saw talking about the difference between story and plot using Lord of the Rings as an example.
Did you see it? Frodo smiles. That is the climax of his character arc, and the climax of the story itself. Remember, Frodo failed to let go of the ring back on Mount Doom. Sauron was defeated, but the ring was not. The world was saved, but Frodo was not. Only when Frodo steps aboard the ship to the Grey Havens is the influence of the ring finally defeated within himself. And if we define the main story of The Lord of the Rings as Frodo's quest to destroy the ring, then this is when that goal is ultimately achieved.
So I thought, okay, does that apply here? Is one of these songs representing Aang's story and one of these songs representing Aang's plot? Well, to answer that, I had to figure out what these songs represent in the show and figure out when and why they're played. Now here's where things start to get into the realm of my opinion. Based off of the context of the scenes where these songs are played, and how the track team described these songs in interviews, this leitmotif which plays whenever Aang or Team Avatar does anything particularly heroic, seems to represent Aang's mission or Team Avatar's mission to help Aang defeat the Fire Lord. It represents their ability to work towards a common goal, and the common goal throughout the entire show is to defeat the Fire Lord. Now, I'm not saying that this is hard and fast what it is, but I am saying that this leitmotif or theme is leaning towards representing Aang's destiny through plot. But that still leaves the other song. Well, by way of deduction, if the other song represents Aang's plot, then this song would represent Aang's story. But that's just by way of deduction. Let's try to actually figure it out. What does this song represent? This song is very specific to Aang and only plays when he's either in the Avatar state or dealing with Avatar matters. Whereas the other theme represents Aang's objective to defeat the Fire Lord, this theme represents Aang's duties specifically as the Avatar to bring balance to the world. Now, why am I saying any of this? You might be asking yourself if you haven't fallen asleep already. Well, if you have two conflicts, then you're going to have two resolutions. Keep in mind these are all very subtle observations and differences, and it's still very debatable where the actual climaxes of the show are, but based solely off of the musical content, I think at least one of Aang's climaxes is in this song. Yeah, we're still talking about the same song in case you forgot. I say only one resolution because I think Aang's plot resolution actually happens the moment he defeats the Fire Lord. Yes, you technically hear both leitmotifs in the scene where he defeats the Fire Lord, but I think it's only the plot resolution that happens for reasons I'll explain in a second. In the scene where Aang defeats the Fire Lord, after he puts out the fire that the Firebenders have caused, the camera pans upwards at him, elevating his stature, and we hear Aang's plot leitmotif. Based on the music and the context of the scene and the cinematography, I think that this shot is the climax of Aang's plot, or the moment of its resolution. So what about Aang's story? Well, if you'll remember, this whole thing started because of this song, Peace. As all the Avatar's love leitmotifs that we heard earlier stop, the song begins to build with this melody. This is the Avatar's theme song and Aang's story leitmotif. Remember, it represents Aang's duties as the Avatar to bring balance to the world. And yes, this song played the moment that Aang defeated the Fire Lord. But in the song Peace, it builds and builds until we get the biggest crescendo of this song that we've ever had. And I think it's not until this moment, where Aang is standing in front of the four nations, and then some, does he see his duties as the Avatar to bring balance to the world fulfilled, making this the climax and resolution of Aang's story. And we hear this happen musically because super fast music theory lesson. Here we go. There are 7 notes in the major scale. Each one of these notes has a chord that corresponds with it, and each chord gives off a different feeling in the context of that scale. Some sound happy, some sound sad, some sound scary, and some sound relaxing. Everything in music comes down to either tension or release, home or away from home, and the chord that gives us the strongest sense of home is the 1 chord. You can hear Aang's story resolution happen musically because whenever this leitmotif, the Avatar theme, played throughout the show, it was always a bit tense and it never gave off the satisfying feeling of just being home. But in this moment where Aang is standing in front of everyone, we land on the strongest 1 chord that this song has ever landed on, and it's just So that's it. That's generally everything I wanted to explain when I had the idea to make this video. But while I was researching this video and watching and listening, I discovered something amazing. Something about everybody's favorite character. Something about the character that people just can't seem to get enough of. Momo. I'm just kidding. It's... Zuko is a character I was not expecting to talk about, but should have been expecting to. I'm not even going to try to express how much of a well-written character Zuko is, because there are hundreds of videos of articulate people doing that already on YouTube. I'm going to try to let you know just how much of the show you're missing out on, because, oh boy, it's a lot with Zuko. As I was researching for this video, and after I thought I had discovered all that there was worth talking about, I found this video called The Sound of Prince Zuko, and this video blew my mind. The video is a compilation of all the songs that are connected to Zuko in some way, but cleverly edited so that, for the most part, one song flows into another seamlessly. And while listening to this video, I discovered two major connections between some of the songs. And that's when I learned that Zuko, just like Aang, has two themes, so immediately I tried to connect them to Zuko's story and plot. This time, let's start by talking about Zuko's story theme. Oh boy, strap your emotional self in, because we're going for a ride. Before we begin and look at any actual pieces of music, let's try to figure out and define what Zuko's story and plot are. Okay, so this should be easy, right? Zuko throughout the entire show is trying to regain his honor, and eventually does by the end of the show, but does it his own way. And that's basically it, right? Not exactly. If we're defining what someone's story and plot are by what their internal and external conflicts are, then I would say that Zuko's external conflict or his plot is his destiny, what he's meant to do. And I would say that his internal conflict is his identity, who he's meant to be. So let's move back to that, Zuko's story. One of Zuko's themes is this song. Take particular note of this moment here, where the song crescendos, but it's still sad and unresolved. That's going to be important later. This song plays in a couple places throughout the show, but most notably in the beach episode. So if this is Zuko's story theme, why? What is this song actually representing? Some context clues come from where it's played in the show. As I said, this song is most noticeable in the episode The Beach, but it is also featured predominantly in Book 3, Episode 6, The Avatar and the Fire Lord, when Zuko is learning of his great-grandfather's past. So, while making this video, I got to thinking, what does this song represent? Is it Zuko regretting where his life has ended up now? Is it having to do something with Zuko's actual past, since it plays in the beach house where he was as a kid and when he's learning of his great-grandfathers? Is it Zuko battling between the difference of what he's been taught and what he's learned in the world? What is it? Then it kind of clicked for me. This song is Zuko fighting between lost and found, and looking for a place of belonging. It's his struggle within himself to find himself. And this is beautifully visually shown by Zuko going back to his childhood house, the place where he felt in the past the most found, except now he's older and more lost than ever, realizing that it was all a lie. This gives us, the viewer, a glimpse into the state of Zuko's confusion, because he's where he should feel most found, but he's more lost than he's ever been. So that's kind of sad. It's a song about Zuko's confusion to find himself. How does that get resolved? I'll just let it play. I couldn't try to describe this.
Uncle, I know you must have mixed feelings about seeing me. I don't know how I can ever make it up to you, but I thought you would be furious with me.
I was never angry with you. I was sad because I was afraid you lost your way.
I did lose my way.
But you found it again.
Okay, now that we're all crying, let's look at the music and see what that added to the scene. So obviously the beginning of the song is pretty much the same. We have this lonely violin note and these chimes that sound like they're coming from a children's music box. But remember how I told you to take note of the crescendo? Here's why. Both versions of the song have a crescendo, but with the other song, the crescendo was still sad and tense and unresolved. But with this song, entitled Reconciliation, we get a satisfying climax where all the instruments are playing in unison and everything feels resolved. That's because even though Zuko had already found himself, this is the moment where he receives validation. Even Iroh uses terminology like lost and found, saying how happy he is that Zuko found his way. A good illustration of this point that I read somewhere is that when Zuko was on his knees begging for forgiveness to his father, he received a scar. But when Zuko was on his knees begging for forgiveness from his uncle, he receives a hug. We hear all this musically. We hear the confusion and anger Zuko had, and we hear Zuko admitting this to his uncle. And best of all, we hear his uncle forgiving him and Zuko coming to peace with himself. So good. But that still leaves one song left. Oh my gosh, did I save the best for last? This honestly feels like it could be an entire video by itself. Whenever people are discussing their favorite musical moments in Avatar, there's always one that seems to be elevated above the rest as a musical moment in Avatar unlike any other. The last Agni Kai is the most curious case out of all of these. It's a completely dialogue-free scene, and we're left to just focus on what we hear and what we see. And I think that's a big reason why it stands out in people's memory so much. This show is built off of its characters and the interactions that they have with each other. Yet we get one of the most powerful examples of both of those in a scene with no dialogue. And while making this video, I was shocked to see that nobody had really tried to explain what makes this scene so powerful. It was mostly just left at, yeah, in the other fight scenes there's always bombastic music and fast drums, and in this fight scene it comes down and slows down to just string swells. But that was about it. But as I got older, I could not convince myself that this piece of music was brand new and didn't show up in any other scenes before this. It was such a pivotal scene that I just knew in my bones that Jeremy Zuckerman and Benjamin Wynn wouldn't introduce a brand new piece of music in the series finale of the show. And the awesome thing about this finale is that throughout the entire show, Jeremy Zuckerman and Benjamin Wynn were using a sample library for all their orchestral music. But in the finale, they actually got a live string ensemble. They told Nickelodeon that they were actually willing to pay with their own money to record with the string ensemble.
We had decided that we wanted to get live strings.
It needed
for the finale.
to step it up to where it needed to go. We needed live strings.
We were gonna do it even if we had to pay for it. So we sent an email to that effect. The president of Nickelodeon got the email and was like, "This is what I'm talking about. We need to give these guys, give them the money."
He was just so sort of moved by the fact that we were willing to pay for it ourselves. We were seriously like, we want to, this is our swan song, and we want it to be, really awesome.
So I knew that there was no way that they would introduce a new piece of music that meant nothing to the narrative or us, the viewer. And guess what? I was right. Back in that video, The Sound of Prince Zuko, there was a song that caught my attention as being connected to the last Agni Kai. And I'm not saying this to blow my own horn, but I think I'm the only person who's noticed this connection, because I cannot find anybody mentioning this connection anywhere else online. The song I'm referring to is called Whose Destiny, and it plays in Book 2, Episode 16, when Iroh is yelling at Zuko underneath Lake Laogai.
What do you plan to do now that you have found the Avatar's bison? Keep it locked in our new apartment? This is exactly what happened when you captured the Avatar at the North Pole. You had him, and then you had nowhere to go. Is it your own destiny? Or is it a destiny someone else has tried to force on you?
Remember, we're talking about story and plot, and we already talked about Zuko's story theme, which means this song represents Zuko's plot struggle, his destiny. So what's happening in this scene? Zuko broke into the Dai Li headquarters to steal Appa, but Iroh catches him in the act and confronts him about what his destiny is to be. Because throughout the show, Iroh has tried to be a rock to his nephew and guide him in the right direction, but he has seen time and time again his nephew ignore his gentle wisdom, so he confronts him and puts Zuko on the knife's edge of what choice he's going to make. This song represents Zuko's destiny, but more specifically, it represents the difficulty that Zuko has choosing his destiny. The song is tense and chaotic, but actually let's look at it. Like I said, the song is tense and chaotic, but not in an aggressive way, but in a sad way. What's really cool is that you can hear Zuko struggle to choose a side, and you can hear him teetering between his two options, musically, because the song's chords are alternating between the minor 1 chord and the minor 4 chord. Don't worry if you don't remember what that means, just know that it's happening. But more than that, each individual instrument is actually cycling between playing 2 notes. You can hear this cycling back and forth throughout the entire song. And in this scene, Zuko chooses the destiny that his uncle always wanted for him. One of freedom and independence from everything the Fire Nation now stands for. That is until Azula shows up. In Book 2, Episode 19, something really, really cool happens. I think. In this scene, Iroh is telling Zuko how proud he is of the man he's become. And we hear this melody.
You are not the man you used to be, Zuko. You are stronger and wiser and freer than you have ever been. And now you have come to the crossroads of your destiny.
I know, you can barely hear it, and it's a blink and you miss it moment. But just follow me while I put on my musical tinfoil hat. If you take what direction those notes move in that melody, you get this pattern. And if you turn that pattern upside down, you get this pattern. Now, I don't know if this is just me reading way too much into things, which it probably is, but if it's not, then oh my gosh, this is amazing. When Iroh is telling Zuko how proud he is of the man he's become, we hear the Fire Nation theme song upside down, because Zuko here is the farthest away he's ever been from the ideologies of the Fire Nation. But after Azula shows up and offers Zuko an option that would lead him back to the Fire Nation, we get a premonition of what choice Zuko makes, because we hear this. And we hear this premonition confirmed when Zuko's choice to fall back into the Fire Nation is solidified in this moment. And that choice leads the narrative perfectly into this moment, and Zuko reconciles and finds peace with himself, and yada yada yada. And that brings us to the last Agni Kai. This scene is the highlight of the show for me, and the culmination of everything that Zuko has been through. Let's look at why. Now, if you still don't hear how these two are the same song, Remember how I said the song Whose Destiny cycles between the minor 1 and minor 4 chord? So does the last Agni Kai. Except now the arrangement is no longer chaotic and tense. The strings swell to the middle of each measure and then are met by a large percussion hit. And the live strings lend themselves to good use because you can hear all of the emotion put into each chord. Everything feels intentional and grounded. This song just screams finality. And this is because Zuko is no longer struggling to make a choice. He has made his choice. And in the same song where we heard how uncertain he was as to the choice that he should make, now we hear how resolute he is in the choice that he has made. Zuko has chosen to go against his family and everything that they stand for and fulfill his destiny to become the Fire Lord. And he is firm in his choice. And this is all visually represented beautifully. Zuko's bright orange fire creates a stark contrast with Azula's bright blue fire. And this displays just how opposite he is from what he's fighting, his family, which is literally in between him and the throne. The other visual representation is Zuko's stance. Zuko hardly moves at all during this fight, which visually shows how firm and resolute he is in his choice. This is Zuko's climax as a character. Everything that Zuko has been through culminates in this one scene, and it's perfect. We see all this and we hear all this without a single word being spoken. And I think that's a testament to the brilliant score of this show. Avatar: The Last Airbender is a show that I think took all of us by surprise. We were not expecting that this kids show would make us feel laughter, sorrow, love, and loss like the way it did. And I think the same can be said for its score. On its surface, it's nothing special, but the amount of substance that you'll find if you open yourself up to it is more than pleasantly surprising. And I think that's what makes the music of Avatar: The Last Airbender good. Hi, if you made it here all the way to the end of the video, thank you for watching. This video took a lot of time and effort to make, so if you enjoyed it, give it a like and let me know. And if you didn't enjoy it, give it a dislike and let me know. And if you have any opinions on any of the stuff I mentioned, please feel more than free to put it in the comments. I'm really interested to know what people have to say about this stuff, since it seems like a really undersaturated subject. I've never done one of these video essay things before, and choosing Avatar was a really daunting task. If you want to see me do more of these, let me know, I guess? I don't know. Anyway, I'm done. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go drink some tea.